what about slang words for benefits? And we came up with bennies. And
I was like, you got to get the bennies. That's so cool. And we love the word fresh just because,
And of all the things that we took to market that spring when Heidi was rebranding and we were rebuilding things, and she was taking them out to some market review, it was the only thing that 100% people agreed on. Nobody liked the name. But
not one person.
They all said, we don't like the name. They had no idea how else to name it. And we thought that the name really would carry legs and be unique in our space.
Wait. Time out. I got to back up for a second. Did I miss something? They didn't like your old name, or they didn't like the name you have now?
They didn't like
fresh
Oh,
bennies.
I love this. All right, keep going.
So I had this little focus group, which was basically women at my church. And I would show them the product and the pricing and the branding and all that stuff. And to a person, like they said, I love this, I love that. And when I got to the name, I gave them 3 names and they said, whatever you do, don't choose Fresh Bennies because we hate it. And I was like, I don't care. Like, sometimes like you really want to take input. Yeah. You want to take input from customers or potential customers. You really do want to do that. But sometimes you just got to go with your gut and you just have to say, no, this is the right thing. And I mean, would people have bought an iPhone if you were like, hey, and here's all the stuff it does and you're going to want this? No.
Henry Ford said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
Welcome to the RockstarsRocking podcast, powered by Voluntary Disruption, a show dedicated to people who are crushing their business and life goals. These are bite-sized conversations with leading rock stars in their respective industry who are pumped to share their story to help drive you to the next level. So, are you ready to rock? Speaking of rock stars, here's your host, Eric Silverman.
Hey, rock stars, welcome back to another episode of Rockstars Rocking, where I only have the top of the top best rock stars who are always rocking it out in both business, personal, and in life. And today is an industry podcast first, at least for the Rockstars Rocking show, where I have not one rock star, but 2 Rockstars Rocking on at the exact same time. Everybody meet and welcome my good friend Reid and Heidi Rasmussen out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, co-founders, co-CEOs, co-presidents, co-everything, I guess, at Fresh Bennies. What's up, guys? And thank you for coming on the show.
We are so excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Glad to be here, Eric.
Absolutely. I'm so glad and glad to have you. I'm so pumped. I've been admiring you guys and your business growth from afar for a long time. I met you. I vividly remember meeting you, Reid. No disrespect, Heidi, but I remember meeting Reid at an industry conference in January of 2016, if I could be specific. And we were down south, and I loved what you guys were offering, and you were continuing to grow at that point. You'd already been in business quite a while. I believe you guys started the company in 2009. Let me, if you don't mind, dig in. I got a number of things on my mind, and I don't want to waste time.
You bet.
Yay.
So one of the things that I wanted to start with was how you came about the idea for Fresh Bennies. I think it's just, I'm going to say it. You ready? I'm going to say it. It's a fresh idea. I love the name. I love the logo and the color scheme. I'm sure that was all Heidi, of course, naturally. But can you talk about the genesis behind Fresh Bennies and where that came about? And Heidi, you didn't have a benefits experience background. I know you did, Reid, but like, how do you guys just come together and say, I want to do something new in the benefits world, and we're going to get creative and see what the heck happens? Where'd that come from?
Good question.
Take it away.
No, you start.
Okay. Well, I'm from Canada originally. And then I was around the insurance industry here since 91. And there was some things that had gone on in Canada 25, 30 years ago with the way that when their market was crunching on budget, how the carriers reacted, how the market reacted. And out of that, as the Affordable Care Act was ramping up in 2009, and we were seeing that more and more employers around the country were starting to roll towards high deductible health plans. We were starting to see some thousands of dollars of out-of-pocket cost exposure. And basically, we had been about 7-8 years of HSA rules. And what we saw was brokers were just telling people, go be a better consumer. And they might toss a few tools their way, but they never cared if people actually used them. And so I thought that that was going to be bad for us as an industry if we didn't help people be better consumers. And we looked at things like advocacy services, telehealth, savings networks as good, valuable tools to help people make better use of their healthcare dollars. And I saw that what you needed to do was bundle them together and deliver them in a way that people would actually know how to use them and would use them. And so that had prompted the company.
So you're working at a company, and he had
A
got
general
this
agency.
great idea. He was like, gosh, in Canada, they would bundle multiple little services together, like ambulance. Like, we promised we'd care for you in the hospital.
So that's something that's in Canada, or at least was, and that's was that kind of a little light bulb that said you could do
It was
here?
the light bulb.
Okay.
So like there, it's like, we'll take care of you in the hospital, but we never said we'd get you to the hospital. So if you want to get to the hospital, you need an ambulance plan. Or we said that you could be in the hospital. We didn't say you'd have your own room. So if you don't want to be in a ward, you could buy this little policy. So he was like, okay, great. If you took all these little ideas, because each of them on their own are kind of tiny for a broker to sell when they were doing mostly medical, dental, vision back in the
Right.
day. And so if you could bundle them all together and put a great experience around it, that could be awesome. So he's trying to sell this idea to his company, and he's so frustrated. I was at JCPenney at the time, and he comes to me and he's like, and I'm a communication person. He's like, how do I get this across to them? And I'm like, well, you've tried twice. Do you believe the numbers? And he's like, yeah. And I go, well, do you believe that people are going to need these things and Americans are going to need help? And he's like, yeah. And I go, why don't you start a company? And he's like, oh, no, I could never do that.
That was Friday night. Friday night.
And it was Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was Labor Day weekend 12 years ago.
What year was this?
12 years ago.
2009.
Oh, 9. Okay.
Yeah. And on Monday, he was like, I'm doing it. So like, that's what happened. And so in the beginning, so my background is I was with JCPenney since I was 15. I worked on the floor, worked my way through high school, college, management in stores, district, staff, and then moved to the home office. And at that time, I think I was a vice president over something, marketing or something, or store environment. And he's trying to, and I was like, hey, listen, you do it. I've got a great job. I'll be chief sugar mama officer. And so that's what I was. I didn't have a card though, which is upsetting.
Never got you a card.
But anyway, so I was the money lady. And so he just went out and started building it, and I kept working. And 3 years later, JCPenney went through a huge change with the new CEO. And if you had a V or a P in your title, you would no longer be there. And so I got let go, and he's like, you got to come work with me.
Come on. I need some help over here.
It's going to be awesome. And I was like, oh gosh, let's go from 2 incomes to 1 to none. That's a great idea. Because at that point,
we were still getting going, finding our market. We were just,
that was one of my follow-up questions was, that's not easy. I mean, I know a million people and in the industry, and not even in industry, it doesn't have to be industry related, where husband or wife comes home and says, I'm done, I'm starting my own business. And the other one freaks out and is not supportive. You were the complete opposite.
I was like, you go do it, pushing him out the door. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. Well, I think we always wanted to be in business together in some way. And so when this came up, and it was, his whole issue was, I don't know enough people. I'm like, so many people. He was so into Nahu and a speaker, and spoke about the Canadian healthcare system, and did so much and had so many great connections. And so I think that's what took him the weekend to realize is like, yeah, I could do this.
Yeah.
So let me keep moving forward, right? I mean, you guys are 4-time Inc. 5000 award winners. I don't know if it's an award. I've seen the award. Yeah. It's Inc. 5000. You're obviously growing year in and year out. But I got to back up sometime, because I'm a marketing guy by trade. Insurance pays the bills, but I love to get creative and be in marketing. I mean, that's just my passion for all these years, probably why we all hit it off. Talk about the name, like you're brainstorming names of companies. Like, this is, all of our listeners are not all insurance benefits people, so they'll appreciate the story of how the name came about, and even the color scheme. Because I mean, I'm not stupid. I mean, I immediately think strawberries when I see it, and it's warm and delightful. Like, it's really cool. If you're listening on a podcast right now and not on YouTube, go to freshbenies.com, go to their website, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's incredible.
So we'd actually had a different name originally, but when Heidi came on board in 2012, we were zeroing in on what we have become, and that is an employee benefit program to help people slash their costs and confusion. But at that point in time, we knew that we needed a rebrand. We knew that we needed to become very member focused, that it needed to be a fun and delightful brand. And we were looking for a name at that point in time that really spoke to that. And so we went through the process, and we knew that we wanted something that was new or fresh, or something along those lines. And we wanted it to be more.
Did you
casual.
take like a piece of paper and just start listing out
Literally.
names
We did,
and
we did.
words?
Wait.
Fresh and cool and awesome, like just
Yeah.
Yes, it was an Excel spreadsheet though, because we're like weird. And so we had like all these names on one side and all these, and we're like, permutations, like concatenating them together, like what works.
And then we're going to over to Google, and we're
Google.
saying, does anybody own
What's
this
taking-
combo?
Right. You probably
Yeah.
used thesaurus a bit too.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And we wanted a name that we didn't want to say insurance or benefits or healthcare. Like, we wanted to separate ourselves that we're not insurance.
Right.
That's where we were like, hey, what about slang words for benefits? And we came up with bennies. And
I was like, you got to get the bennies. That's so cool. And we love the word fresh just because,
and of all the things that we took to market that spring, when Heidi was rebranding and we were rebuilding things, and she was taking them out to some market review, it was the only thing that 100% people agreed on. Nobody liked the name, but
not one person.
they all said we don't like the name. They had no idea how else to name it, and we thought that the name really would carry legs and be unique in our space.
Wait. Time out. I got to back up for a second. Did I miss something? They didn't like your old name, or they didn't like the name you have now?
They didn't like
They
fresh
didn't like
bennies.
fresh
Oh, I
bennies.
love this. All right, keep going.
So I had this little focus group, which was basically women at my church, and I would show them the product and the pricing and the branding and all that stuff. And to a person, like they said, I love this, I love that. And when I got to the name, I gave them 3 names, and they said, whatever you do, don't choose fresh bennies because we hate it. And I was like, I don't care. Like, sometimes like you really want to take input. Yeah. You want to take input from customers, and or potential customers. You really do want to do that. But sometimes you just got to go with your gut, and you just have to say, no, this is the right thing. And I mean, would people have bought an iPhone if you were like, hey, and here's all the stuff it does, and you're going to want this? No.
Henry Ford said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
Faster horses.
Right?
No, I mean, look, I totally agree. And there is something to be said about focus groups and asking, and I totally get it. But at the end of the day, you're the CEO. It's your business. You have to do what you do. That's why when it's successful, that's why you get paid the big bucks to make those decisions. And you know what? If it failed, that's on you as well. So that's the whole marquee. I mean, it reminds me of, I don't know if you ever heard the story of how the Aflac duck came about, but they had a huge New York PR team that was hired. They spent ridiculous amounts of money on, true story. And they had 2 campaigns that they brought to the CEO and the board. One was with the duck, and it was funny and cute. Nobody was doing that type of stuff. And one was literally Ray Romano from Everybody Loves Raymond, was the hottest guy at the time in the year 1999, 2000. And it was this cute kindergarten thing with Ray Romano, and the kids were lined up in the name Aflac, in like their body formed the word Aflac. And that's what tested the best. It was safe. Everybody said, do it. And the CEO literally said, no, we're going with the duck. I think that's the good one. And look what happened. So
Wow.
I love your story because it's just so true. You have to make that decision and follow your gut.
Yeah. And one thing we knew from the very beginning is that we were going to be working with brokers who were selling to employers or presenting us to employers. And the end member was going to be the person that was using it. And so we said from the very beginning, and a lot of people told us, just get it installed and then stay quiet, and people will keep paying you, like, that kind of program.
Yeah.
Both of us were like, that is
not
nothing
the kind of
the
company we
want to run.
Yeah.
And we don't want to own that. We want to truly help people control their healthcare expenses and their frustration. And so we were like, no, we need to create a brand that actually works for the end member, because if the end member loves us, they tell their employer loves it, their broker for bringing it. And we just knew that would flow up the line. And so that's why we went with what we did.
So to put a bow on this part of the conversation, I'm going to switch gears completely in just a minute. How did you go about the logo design and the color scheme? Are you guys that creative, or did you hire somebody? Because I just think it works. It's really just a fun, whimsical theme.
Yeah, it was, we worked with a graphic designer who gave us a bunch of different choices, you know how that goes.
Sure.
And he was like, when I think about fresh, I think about oranges and greens and, citrus colors and vegetables and all that stuff.
And they were unique and not being used a lot in the benefits world at that point in time.
Yeah,
So
blue.
blue is
your
the
color.
Blue is
benefit
always,
world.
yeah.
And orange and
Insurance
green
is always blue, and every now and then red, but you're right, it's different with the scheme that you picked at that point.
Yeah.
I like it. So let me ask you this. Let's dig in here, right? I mean, are there ways that employers and employees can help their employees with respect to navigating healthcare, whether it's a fully insured plan, dare I say, or if it's a self-funded plan? And remember, not everybody listening is in the insurance employee benefits world. So if you can, try to break it down so folks can actually understand how this can help.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want it?
That's the only way I know how to do it because I'm not in this crazy. No, I am in this crazy business, but no, you go ahead.
All right. Well, when we started, maybe 10% of the country was on some of those plans that had higher out of pocket. And today, maybe 90% of the market is, right? And like myself, I'm on a $6,000 out of pocket cost plan. You know what? It's 6,000 times I get reminded that this system is confusing and terribly complicated, and probably that I might be being taken advantage of with the way that the pricing is goofy and explanation of benefits don't explain anything and are of no benefit to anybody, and they're totally different than the bill. And it's just complicated interacting with the American healthcare system. Doesn't mean that you should have the government run it, right? But it does mean you need a guide. We have experts for everything else in our life. You need a guide. And as much as everybody would like to say, well, just get an app for that, or shouldn't there be a website? Yeah, sure, nice. Except you've wrapped 1/6 of the American economy up into the healthcare system. It's just too complicated for one simple app. So what we see is, for different purposes, you need some of these different tools that can help you. But the biggest issue we're seeing these days is having an advocate who truly can be an expert, who is a healthcare concierge, who really knows how to help you navigate the system. I don't care what kind of plan you're on. You shouldn't be trying to do this on your own. You should have somebody who is an expert with tremendous data behind them, but a personal person to walk you through and explain what that means around where's the best quality place to get an MRI in town, or who is the best quality physician. Because you're going to pick a physician. If you're going to Facebook and your brother-in-law to figure out who the best quality physician is, you're going to get somebody, and they might be nice, but it doesn't mean they're the best. But the data's there. It's just not readily available. And so having that guide is tremendously helpful.
Can I tell a real life story?
And I'll just end with one thing.
Go.
The guide will find you the best quality. And what's weird in healthcare is usually the best quality is the least expensive, because it's the thing that person is an expert at.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to hear that real life story, so don't forget it. But I got to say, I mean, you see it too. I see it all the time. It drives me nuts when I see a friend or somebody who posts on Facebook, hey, I need a knee surgery. Who knows a good knee surgeon, or who's the best knee surgeon? And I just want to kill myself when I hear it, because it's so. And by the way, I'm not trying to be mean or obtuse. They don't know any better. You know, like I've done it where I'll go to Facebook and say, hey, I did it. My roof is leaking. Anybody get their roof fixed lately? And it's been holding up. Okay. Roofing, plumbing, great. But for your actual health, come on.
Yeah. And considering what the bill's going to be, it's not, sometimes it's way more or over time.
Right.
And the healthcare plan that person was on that referred it to you is on a totally different plan than what you're on.
Well,
so
the comments are insane. The comments are like, yeah, they have a really good secretary. That receptionist is terrific. The lobby is awesome. They have the best magazines. I'm not kidding. You've read them too. Those are the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a real life story.
Oh, so, well, this is oversharing, but I needed a colonoscopy because, 50. So I literally wrote to Maury. She's my health pro. And I said, hey, Maury, I need this. And she knows my plan. She knows my city. And she's like, all right, within a day, here's the top 3 in your area. And here's exactly what you'll pay at those 3 when you walk through the door. Like, what? So I go, it's, the best experience you might hope for a colonoscopy. I had a very nice nap, but it was a really nice experience. And then 6 months later, I get a bill for $700.
That was like after you'd already paid it, right?
Yeah, I paid exactly what she told me I would pay at the window, and then had the procedure, and then I get this bill, and I literally took a picture of it, sent it to her, and she's like, I know exactly what happened. I'm taking care of it. And that's the last thing I heard. So
Love
like, just to feel like, okay, somebody's there to help me in whatever the issue is, and they truly have good information and can truly help. So
I love it. You know, it's
Right.
I think of the advocacy side, and this could be a stretch. You tell me if I'm crazy, but I've kind of thought of it like, you know, back in the day when travel agents were even bigger. Like nowadays, unfortunately, they haven't been as big, but my family and I went on a big vacation a month ago, and we have a travel agent. We love her, and it was amazing. But if I had a challenge or a problem, I called her, I texted her, I emailed, and it was touchless. I didn't have to do anything. She did everything for me. And I kind of look at and that's not even, it's a vacation. It's not as important. I look at the advocacy as a similar concept, but now for your own personal health. Is that just a crazy example, or am I
that
on
is
the right
exactly
page?
right.
It's a good
No.
idea, you
Yeah.
know, and a well educated, good advisor as a travel agent
Mhm.
will have you get a lot more value out of your travel than if you tried to fight it on your own, because they can bring the deals and the data and they know how to work
Right.
around things. And it's exactly the same with a
They
health.
also tell you where to avoid in that crazy city that you're going to.
Oh,
You
Yeah.
guys tell us who to avoid when it comes to doctors and healthcare, and what to look for and where to go. The travel agent is also equally going to say, you got to check out this. It's the most incredible spot.
that's
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And then in healthcare, it will more than pay for itself. So, you
I
know,
like it.
moment of jargon. If you're on a fully insured plan, it'll save a family a few hundred to a few $1,000 a year. And that's a well spent few dollars of us for a service. And on a self-insured plan, it will more than pay for itself.
I like
Unnecessary claims.
I'm putting this kind of in the bag of, you know, over the last few years, it's become bigger and bigger to hear the word telemedicine and telehealth.
Yeah.
And that's still ridiculously popular, very important. And I think it's going to continue growing. The pandemic was big on shedding light on why telemedicine was so important, right? Because you couldn't go to a doctor to have a checkup or whatever the heck you needed done. But I think you would agree the advocacy side has kind of trumped that over the last year, and I feel like it's going to continue. They work together, but I think it's going to continue to grow. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. We started in the advocacy and telehealth business back in 2009 when we started. And for all those years, telehealth was always the biggest thing that brokers and consultants who we worked with.
Story.
It drove a ton of savings and value. In the early days, it was discussions around, is this even legal? And then it grew into what it has now, which is everybody understands there's a very valid place for it. But you're right. This year, we saw a shift. All of a sudden this year, everybody recognizes, okay, telehealth is good, but man, the complexity of the system is absolutely requiring that we need more experts. And from the broker and consultant side and the employer side, they recognize they need to outsource that. And it's not expensive in comparison to everything else going on in the system.
Yeah, I mean, look, I had on our good friend Brett Brummett a few episodes back, and I love what he talks about with respect to navigating the healthcare system, and how I'd be misquoting him, so I won't even try. But listen to that episode 54, and you'll hear it. But
It was good.
With all seriousness, though, it's a train wreck, you know, and you know, it's a train wreck for myself and you guys. Sometimes we're in the business, we're in the industry. Imagine somebody, God forbid, you know, who doesn't have a clue and certainly doesn't have an advocate.
Right.
Mind blowing.
Totally.
Let me ask you this. When it comes to advocacy and telemed, I want to stay on this topic for a second. Let's talk about mental health, right?
Yeah.
Mental health has always been an issue. My wife is a psychotherapist. She is a mental health counselor for a living, master's degree, you name it. She has patience like a god. I've never seen it. I could not do what she does. But she literally, I kid you not, told me at the end of 2019 that she wanted to be working a little more in 2020. Our youngest was going to school. It's great. She wanted to work a little more. And she was never busier in 2020 than now 2021, even more. And she's got, her and her partners have, that she's private practice, they have a wait list beyond belief, and they feel terrible. They just don't have enough daylight hours and evening and weekend hours to see everybody. Can you
Yeah.
talk about the mental health aspect and how you guys help in that world?
Yeah, it's
wanna touch on it?
huge. I mean, we are seeing and hearing so much, just people dealing with, we've heard divorce rates are through the roof. So marital counseling and
Right.
anxiety and panic attacks and just all the things that are going on with the unprecedented, my favorite word, the unprecedented times and everything that's been going on. So it's huge. And we're also hearing there's just deserts for behavioral and mental health counselors, which is, I'm sure, I was going to say, I bet she's so busy.
Mhm.
And we're hearing that just so many people aren't able to get visits, aren't able to, suicide also is another one that's just like, it's rampant. So the fact that people are able to pretty quickly within a week get in to talk to either a counselor or a psychiatrist for a fraction of the cost that you would pay in person. And at the least, it is available and there, and the process can start with somebody via telehealth or telemedicine version. So
Yeah.
it's huge. The numbers are, I mean, all the stats are crazy. You can say.
The average time in the country to get an in-office visit with a therapist is 30 days. So 4 weeks versus via telehealth, you can get it in a week. Well, when
Yeah.
you're dealing with things like that, I was talking to a broker just yesterday, and he lives in West Texas, the town called West. And people do know of West Texas because
That's literally a city.
Yes.
it is a city, and it was a city that a few years ago a plant exploded that was like a fertilizer plant. You remember that? This
Crazy.
tremendous explosion. And the broker said, I thought mental health, EAP programs or having mental health inside medical plans was just kind of a nice to have. He goes, right up until the point when my teenage son started to say, I've got a lot of anxiety. And it grew a few years after the explosion, but he was dealing with basically PTSD as a teenager over the explosion that occurred in their town. And while the coronavirus dramatically shot up mental health needs over the last year, we've seen in the younger population, the younger generations, that the mental health demands are much higher than they ever were for us. I mean,
I agree.
And so the need is tremendous out there. Yeah.
So let's switch gears here. I want to talk about how I think you guys were. You're obviously pretty cool, but you were cool before it was cool to be cool. And what I'm talking about is a hot topic that's going to continue to be a hot topic even over the next year or two or more, unfortunately, good, bad, or indifferent. And that's work from home. That's the virtual environment that we live in. Like in a perfect world, I'd love to be in person with you guys doing this with each of us having a mic and recording with a video. But the reality is we can get a lot of stuff done virtually. And I'm not arguing in person is bad, but you guys, to my knowledge, have been virtual for quite a while. Can you talk about your views on work from home and maybe shed some comfort or light to a CEO or a team member or an operations person who listens to the show who is struggling with trying to figure that out and they're confused on if it's even going to work long term?
Mm-hmm.
We had an advantage in that we just started that way. I came as a salesperson to start a company, which meant I was never expecting people to come to my door. I was always going to go out to
Right.
them. I happened to start my company in Dallas, Texas. And then because of licensing, we could sell our service in any state. So I followed where my networks were, which was all over the country. I couldn't afford in the early days to travel to every single meeting. So I started to I got my WebEx account, and I started to do pre-qualifications via video. And in those days, one person out of 25 would flip on the video on their side, but I would flip it on my side because I didn't care if I saw their face, but I needed to know that they could see the whites of my eyes, that when they're like, I got you with the gotcha question, that they could see I didn't flinch, right? And what I found was it was just at a time when people are starting to get comfortable with a bit of video conference like that. And I found you could get long ways through the sale, if not completely through sales, before you had your first in-person visit. And so we supplemented it with, let's get
A
around.
pre-qualifier.
It was really what started it. And then the cloud was coming to play. So we started to build all our systems in the cloud. Heidi was the first employee 2.5 years in. Another year later was our second. And we were looking at it going, we didn't like having an office. We didn't want to drive, I didn't want to drive into an office, and why have the expense? And then as we grew our team, we just started to build our system and our processes with the way we interacted with our people.
We also hired differently.
Yes.
So like our whole onboarding process and interviewing process was different, and you're interviewing for that in the beginning. So I think a lot of people who kind of, it's been forced upon, maybe didn't have the total right team and the right tech in place. Right. So
That's true.
yeah. So for us, we're looking for the people who are trustworthy and we're not micromanagers for the most part. We're not standing over people. Are you getting your job done? What are you doing? How's that working right now? So it's really hiring those people who are self-starters and who can take the ball and run, and to where we're not having to be sitting right next to them to make sure, and trustworthy to know that they're a great remote worker, and you don't have to feel like, is anybody doing anything out
Well, that's a
there?
big concern, right? A lot of CEOs and founders and entrepreneurs who do have a small, mid, large, or even mega-sized organization, they a lot of times are fearing right now, I'm paying people. Are they actually doing anything? Like, it's crickets. I don't know. I can't see. I can't go over to their cube or their desk or their office. And I don't know. I can't necessarily trust that they're getting their job done. And I don't know who said it originally, but it's basically what you just said. I mean, really, if you can't trust them to get it done, then you got the wrong person.
Yeah, you have the wrong people. And the part that Heidi is fantastic at is managing of people and organizational management. And so she has pulled me and the team into looking differently at how we support and interact with our team. And you're right. If you've got wrong management processes where you have no idea what work people are doing or not doing, it's a management problem. It's not an employee problem. It might turn out to be an employee problem.
We're also very blessed in that we're both communicators. So we're not the type that are just like, go do this and then don't talk to us. So we're constantly on video calls and talking to people throughout the day. So it does give you I fully trust everybody on our team, but it does, if people need peace of mind, that does help too. But it just depends on how you run your team and how you work with them on a day-to-day basis.
Here's what I would recommend for people. If somebody is running their company and don't know if they have good tracking and operational processes in place, go read the book Traction, which talks about the EOS, which is the Entrepreneur's Operating System. And it basically gives you a model of what are the things in your company you need to track. And then probably the biggest thing out of it is, what's the cadence of the kinds of meetings that you can and should set up for your people, not to lock you into meetings, but rather to free you up so that those meetings are doing what they need to do, which is giving you those touch bases with your team, coming up with those times to have some retreats and some planning time with the whole team. And that's one. Huge. And then the other one that I would refer them to is The Great Game of Business, which really talks about how do you build a transparent organization to your team so that you're teaching them how to run your company and why you're making decisions the way that you do, which builds a tremendous amount of trust, even if people aren't right there in person with you every single day.
No, I love it. And, it's something you just said reminding me of Ben Connor out of Indy, who runs Connor Insurance as broker. Yeah. And he's a super good dude. And he said during the pandemic, he's so big on culture. In his case, he wants people to work from home, have a hybrid environment, come in, come out, but he likes that culture. So what he did is while everybody's working from home 100%, he went out and once a month or whatever, he would go rent a food truck and pay in advance and buy everybody's lunch, and totally voluntary. Like, he had no idea how many people would show up, was not required. And it was spaced out, social distance, whatever you want to call it. And he said 90% of the company came, and they weren't forced. They weren't required. They just wanted to be there because for him, the culture aspect was key. So like, there are ways to do work from home. You just got to be creative.
Yes, absolutely. That's one thing we did, is we would always do quarterly strategy retreats.
Yep.
And so everybody would come in and we'd do them in person. And so instead of doing a 2 or 1.5 day strategy retreat, we took it down to 2 half days, because you can only be on Zoom for so long. But always starting with icebreakers. We had deliveries come to their home that had Fresh Benny swag in it,
Yep.
and it had a Grubhub
Snack
card so they could
packs
order their
and-
lunch. And we would do, we did some really fun, like we did this thing called goat to meeting, where you go into a meeting and there's a goat like in one of the Zoom squares, hilarious. And
Is it
you get a
Tour of a farm.
Yeah, you get a tour of a farm, and it's just like so much fun. So we just came up with just different things like that to keep them guessing. Like, what's
That's
going to
good.
happen this time?
That's good. I like it. I like it. I
I like
like
the
it.
food truck idea. That's great.
Yeah.
He said it was a hit. I mean, food truck is the thing these days. It's continuing to grow. Let me ask you this. What about companies that are struggling to find talent, not just fellow advisors and brokers that we know, but actual, not that they're not actual, but employer groups, large and small, any industry USA, they're struggling to find talent. They're struggling to even find part-time talent, which a lot of them say that used to be the easy part. What can they be thinking of or doing as it relates to Fresh Bennies?
Well, I think it's just, the thing about it is it's a hot topic. I belong to a couple of different peer groups with other entrepreneurs, and every single time we get together in the last 5 months, they've been talking about this talent war and how are they managing their people, and the Great Resignation of the fact that April to June, 11.5 million people quit their jobs and didn't necessarily go back out and just pick the next job. Like, people are struggling with what they want to do with their life and where do they want to work. So how can you be an employer of choice? Well, benefits is a piece of that. Some of it is the benefits of, you better run a great company and have a purpose and bring
Yes.
people in. But for us as a benefit world, if you want to open a conversation right now and say, hey, can I run rates for your health insurance? Basically, you're not going to get many takers right now. But if you said, let's have a conversation about how are you an employer of choice? And is your benefit program proving that you have a benefit plan that cares about your employees? And if you can't say yes, then maybe we should have a conversation, because that will open up more conversations than running quotes on insurance. And sure, is Fresh Bennies one of the tools that somebody might bring in that might show, hey, here's a hybrid and remote product that fits well with a hybrid and remote workforce? Sure. And I'll coach somebody on how to find their way into that conversation. But Eric, I know with what you do with supplemental benefits, that conversation opens up 100 different things you could do. And any broker or consultant who's out in the street or employer, there's dozens of other ideas that they could rebuild or repackage. It might even be the very things that they're already providing in their benefit program. They just need to sort of repackage it and rediscuss it a little bit. But you specifically brought up as well the non-benefited people, the people who, maybe qualify for benefits but don't pick them, or they are
those who are typically not usually eligible, quite frankly.
Right.
So imagine, instead of saying, well, we don't offer benefits, like I'll just use the Fresh Bennies example, to be able to say, oh, you wouldn't be benefits eligible, but we have a benefit for you. You get no cost doctor visits over the phone. You get access to behavioral telehealth at a very low cost. You get a healthcare concierge to help you navigate the system and pricing and all that with whatever plan you do have. And then of course we do like savings networks and all those things that we bundle all together. So it's super easy for the employer and it's super easy for the employee. And it really gives them something that they can say instead of, we don't do benefits for you.
Yeah.
No, I love it. And what I don't love is when I meet an employer who brags about, they use these words often. They brag about how they are an employer of excellence, and every year their local business journal ranks them as an employer of excellence. And it's great. I don't know any better. And we peel back the onion or the curtain and we start looking at their benefits, and they have very, I hate, it's an overused term, but say status quo, or maybe a different term would be, they're not even up to the benchmarking data. Like, they don't have any clue that other plumbing companies or law firms or any company industry, what their competitors are doing in the marketplace. They have no idea what they're doing, and they're still thinking, I've had employers who will say, well, for plumbers in this area, this is important. This is what we do. We're on par. And I try to get them to understand. I'm like, yeah, maybe for skilled labor, but what about, you said you were looking for customer service people? Well, I could be a customer service person in a plumbing company. I could be a customer service person at a grocery store. It's the similar wage. It's the similar work. You're competing not just in your own industry. So that's why I think your product, your company, and your service has so much profound impact. Am I crazy here?
No, you are right on.
We have a restaurant group right now today that we're working on that very conversation with, because they're struggling with these people that, you know what the cost is on rehiring somebody? I don't care if they're low wage or not. The cost of rehiring and losing them is huge.
Oh, monumental. It's crazy. And they don't look at it. It's the old, they're not seeing the forest through the trees. They're looking at the hard dollar cost it might spend a few dollars per employee per month. And they're not understanding the multiple thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars it's going to cost when they have to recruit, onboard, hire, train. I mean, it's insane. So I think we're on the same page here. Let's end on some fun. So one, talk about brokers and cars getting coffee. I am a huge Jerry Seinfeld fan. My dream is to see him in concert and live one day, and I just never have been able to make that happen yet. But I will make it happen. I love that show he did. I think he still does. Where did it come from for you guys when it comes to the broker side?
So first of all, 5 years ago, Heidi took me to see Jerry Seinfeld on my birthday. It was
I'm jealous.
Awesome. He was exactly what you want.
Yeah.
And I loved his show because it was so engaging. Now, I'm not a comedian, so watching comedians in cars getting coffee, like, why was it so intriguing? Because they were just talking about their craft. And when you and I get together at a conference, we've connected over the years because we love to just have a visit over a drink and talk about our craft.
We talk about our craft.
Right?
Yes.
And a couple of years ago, we were talking about what were we going to do on social media. We needed to do something a little different. Video was playing. We're like, maybe we'll do some videos about. The original idea was maybe I'll do some videos. We'll get in a car. Heidi will ask me questions,
Reid.
and we'll do a whole series of videos of me saying how to sell fresh bennies. And it was actually my vice president of sales at the time. He's like, Reid, nobody's going to listen to multiple videos of you talking about how to sell fresh bennies. I go,
Good point.
Fantastic. I go, you know what? You know what they would listen to? Exactly what you've built here, Eric, which is talk to some people from the industry, from all these different backgrounds, about what's cool with them, what are they seeing, how are they dealing with engagement, how are they struggling based upon what's going on in the world. And we decided to launch that. It was not intended to be a commercial for Fresh Bennies. Some of the people work with us in Fresh Bennies, some don't. And so it has just caught some legs. We realized how much production value we needed to put to that. So we'll do an interview like this and we'll cut it down to about 6 or 7 minutes. And that's played well. And
I think you could take that. My opinion is you could take all your original hour-long content or however long it takes when you're in the car and you've been creative to do it virtual as well, which is really cool. Dude, you could turn that into a podcast. You can put that on iTunes and Spotify. And I think people would listen because you were only able to narrow it down in that 6 or 7 minute clip of all the good stuff. There's probably a million other gems within that entire body of work.
Room floor.
There is. I actually built an entire keynote presentation that's also CE-able for those that care about continuing education.
There you go. There you go.
Present that with some of those gems.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, look, I know you are an avid coffee addict like myself, and you and I are always. I had mine too already today, so I'm on the water kick now. But you and I are always joking about Tim Hortons coffee, Timmy's. So I will leave us with that. And Tim Hortons is not paying for this this ad or this plug, but for what it's worth, I look forward to seeing you at an industry event sometime soon, both of you, where we can have, even if it's not Timmy's, we can call it Timmy's and we can cheers with a cup of coffee or something else later in the day. How can people reach you? They want to reach out to Fresh Bennies. What's the best way to get you?
It's Fresh Bennies, FRESHBENIES. One N, not two, but if you spell it the other way, you'll still find us because we own that URL as well.
I was going to say, I bet
contact
you do.
information is there. You'll never mix us up with stale bennies. It's only Fresh Bennies. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn or at our website.
Yeah, these guys are very social. They're not hard to reach. LinkedIn probably would be a good place if you needed to send them a message on a DM. Slide into those DMs on the LinkedIn, or the LinkedIn, little inside joke there. And listen, I just show up and and ask questions, right? So I'm not a producer. I'm not a tech guy by trade. So I have a back office that puts this together. I'm very appreciative of. So for everybody behind the scenes at the Rockstars Rockin' podcast, I'm Eric Silverman. That, everybody, has been Reid and Heidi Rasmussen, co-founders and CEOs of freshbenies. And stay tuned for next week, where we're going to have another Rockstars Rockin' caliber guest. Probably only one at a time, though, because again, this was an industry podcast first for me. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks,
We so
Eric. You're the best.
appreciate
Keep
it.
up the great work.
Appreciate it. You got it. And thank everybody who's always listening. We appreciate you.
Thanks,
Take care.
everybody.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Rockstars Rocking podcast. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. 5 stars would totally rock. Until next time, Rockstars, keep rocking.